What's up guys, welcome back to Life of Lainebut. Today we're talking about how to choose the right school. I think I'm a good person to talk about this. If you don't care about my background, if you don't care about the experiences that inform everything I'm going to say for the rest of this video, go ahead and skip to the chapters down here and go past the disclaimer section and just get into the meat of the video. But if you do care, here I am. So hi again, my name is Lane. You can call me Lainebut. I go to Purdue University. I'm a junior here. I'm studying retail management and I'm from Indianapolis, so I'm like an hour away from my parents' house. If you've never heard of Purdue before, or if you're not very familiar with it, Purdue is a really big school. We're about 40,000 on-campus students, I believe. We're located in West Lafayette, Indiana, which is in a semi-rural area-ish. Lots of people from my high school went here. This was the most popular choice in my graduating class. And this is definitely the more normal college experience compared to where I started school, which was Lipscomb University. I was there for 3 semesters. I was planning on double majoring in fashion design and fashion merchandising and minoring in Spanish, which is just funny to me now. If you want to know in detail why I transferred, I have a whole video about that. Actually, it's probably like up here or in the description or at the end of the video or all of the above. The main thing was I was diagnosed with celiac disease right before I moved down. If you've never heard of Lipscomb before, it is located in Nashville, Tennessee, so 5 hours from my parents' house. It's about 4,000 students, really small, 10 times smaller than Purdue. I didn't really know anyone and it was definitely like a get out of my hometown experience. It is what I chose, but it's also not what I was expecting college to be or what I'd looked forward to about college my whole life. When you search these videos that are like how to choose the right school, how I chose my school, whatever, it's like people with 4.0s are choosing between Harvard and Yale. That's actually not me, and I'm guessing it's not most of you guys. You probably would have clicked on one of those videos if it was. I'm the perfect person to help you decide where you should go to school though, because I've experienced both ends of the spectrum in a lot of different ways. I'm at an in-state school now when I was really far away, big school versus small school, not religious school versus religious school, and also I transferred obviously, so I have that experience under my belt. Otherwise though, I think I'm pretty average. My major is not super abstract, but it's also not super intensive, not STEM, anything like that, and my grades are pretty average too. My campus life participation is pretty average. I'm in a club or two, I work out on campus and I've met people that way. I'm involved in the Purdue music scene, stuff like that. I'm not the most involved person. I'm also not like 0% involved. I have lived in a dorm with 1 roommate. I lived in a dorm with 2 roommates. I lived at my parents' house for a semester, and now I live in an apartment with 5 other girls, or 4 other girls. Not a student athlete or ROTC or student government or anything crazy like that. Let's run through these disclaimers real quick. There is no average college experience. This is my experience. I can't cover everything, but I can cover a lot of things. Also, I'm trying to reach every end of the spectrum of people who might be watching this video. With that, let's get started. I'm assuming that you've sought out this video because you're choosing between 2 schools or more than 2 schools that are not identical. If you were trying to decide between IU and Purdue, obviously I would tell you to choose Purdue, but if they both have your major and everything you want to do in college, in reality, picking either one, like you can have a really similar experience to the other. There's a lot to get through. I can't go into detail on every single one of these. If you have questions, comment down below or hit my DMs and I'm happy to explain more. Look at what applies to the schools you're looking at, listen to my pros and cons, and see what's important to you, see what you're gonna hate. Let's go. Starting off with going to a small school and potentially a private school. There is likely going to be a very big focus on community and people are coming for that community. Your professors want to have relationships with their students, and also the class sizes are smaller, so it's a lot easier to build those relationships. Less competition for whatever you're trying to get into. If you're trying to walk onto a team, if you're trying to get into a social club or Greek life, if you're trying to get into study abroad, there's less people, so there's a higher chance that you get to do whatever you want to do. The campus is physically smaller at Lipscomb. I think everything was literally a 10-minute walk away. This is definitely a pro and a con, but it feels a lot more like high school to me than going to a big school does. You will see familiar faces all the time, all over campus. For example, at Lipscomb, there was 1 freshman girls dorm, there was 1 dining hall that everyone used, there was 1 student center, there was 1 coffee shop. So I would see people in my hall when I was eating lunch, when I was studying, when I was getting Starbucks, and then I would see them in my classes and other places on campus. Okay, now for the cons of going to a small school. Smaller campus. This one's kind of hard to explain. I love being on a big campus if that's something you're looking forward to. It feels more like high school to me. It did not feel like college. Everyone knows everyone, so the grapevine is really short. Gossip's gonna spread quickly. If there's someone you're trying to avoid, you're gonna see them 10 times more often than at a big school. Potentially there is more narrow-mindedness or less diversity of thought. That could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on who you are. This isn't the biggest deal, but it's not state funded, and I will say that that kind of shows through in the budget of different things. Purdue Purdue seems to have more money and things are generally nicer, newer, cleaner here. This one, you think you've considered it, but have you really considered it? Depending on the school, it's probably more expensive to go to a private school. Next up, let's talk about religion. I'm a Christian and I went to a Christian school, so this is assuming that you're going to a school whose religion is the same as yours or close to yours. Pros of going to a religious school. You will find like-minded people. There are lots of opportunities on campus to grow your faith, like chapel or worship services, other on-campus events, baptisms in the fountain. That was a cool thing. It can be really encouraging to be surrounded by people who have the same mindset as you and the same values and goals as you. Religious cons, a lot of this is my personal whatever. When I left high school, I was really excited to make my relationship with God my own, and that did not happen at Lipscomb. My relationship with God or my religion or whatever was a lot more like a chore and something to check off my list so that I could graduate, so that I wouldn't be on probation, so that I would make my chapel requirement. There are much stricter rules at religious schools than, you know, a regular school. Curfew, dress code, very strict rules about like opposite sex dorms. Oh yeah, once you turn 21, you still weren't allowed to drink. Chapel requirement. A lot of those things I don't necessarily have a moral issue with, or a moral issue with to the same extent that like Lipscomb as an institution does. Disappointments are bigger because, at least to me, I was holding Lipscomb to a higher standard than I would have held Purdue. Big city, Nashville. Pros, it's a new experience. I used to really want to move to New York or LA, and Nashville was kind of like a little mini version of that experience. Very exciting, very like butterflies in your stomach. Bigger people come to bigger cities and live in bigger cities, and more stuff in general. There's more bars, there's more restaurants, there's more activities to do. Probably, I'm sure the amount of things to do in Nashville versus West Lafayette is like, it's a big difference. The cons of being in a big city: really expensive comparatively. Gas is more expensive, rent is more expensive, food's more expensive, you have to pay to get in more places. Parking, oh, I feel like there was nothing to do under 21 in Nashville, and I was not 20. I haven't been back there since I turned 21. Moving on to some things more geared towards Purdue. Let's talk about the size of Purdue. Pros: there are more people to meet. Most likely there's more diversity. There is a bigger variety of clubs, majors, activities, Greek life, sports. Like, if you decide that you don't like what you're doing but you don't want to transfer, there's a good chance that a big school will have another major that you like. It's a bigger campus. I don't really know how to explain why I like the bigger campus, except like it just feels like the classic American college experience, and I really like that. On campus there's more stuff to do. Like I said, like there was probably more to do in Nashville than in West Lafayette, but there was a lot more to do on Purdue's campus than Lipscomb's campus. Party culture, this can be a pro or a con depending on who you are, what you like to do, what your experiences have been with partying so far. Cons of going to a big school. Party culture, it's kind of expected that you participate in it. If you don't drink, everyone expects you to drink. There's obviously really bad sides to party culture, and like that's not something to discount at all. It's a farther walk everywhere. This is something, okay, it sounds dumb. I rolled my eyes when my parents were like, you're gonna have to get used to walking everywhere at Purdue, but they were right. My cardio endurance the beginning of fall versus now is very different from all the walking I've done. I talked about there being more opportunity to climb and less competition at a smaller school. It's the opposite here. If you want to be president of your club, if you want to get into a study abroad program, if you want to get into a really small class, your chances are lower. I don't know if the best word for this is like non-religious or secular or normal. We'll go with non-religious for this. Pros of going to a non-religious school: if you're religious. I assume if you're not, the pro is that you match. So a pro is that no one's controlling your decisions. No one's like with dress code, there's always a different definition of modesty, or like how important modesty is or whatever. No one at Purdue is telling you to be modest. Religion's not a chore. You're not fulfilling a chapel requirement. You're not doing a Bible class because you have to graduate. You can tailor your relationship with God or your relationship to religion to be whatever you want it to be. This puts more responsibility on you, and I'm not saying that like you should just pick and choose what it means to be a Christian or whatever religion you are. At a religious school, someone else has picked and chosen what that means, and then you have to live by it. Cons of not going to a religious school: if you're religious, it's harder to find people with the same values as you. People in my major, people in my math class. At Lipscomb, we're all Christians. All kind of had something in common like that. Not the case here. There is more room to make mistakes or to be led astray. No one's keeping you in line here. Pros of going to an in-state school: it is probably closer to home. That can be a pro or a con, but a lot of times it's a pro. Tuition is probably a lot cheaper. Your friends are more likely to go go here. I live with 2 girls that were in my graduating class in high school. I play volleyball with people I went to high school with. I go to devotions with people I went to high school with. This is something I thought I would hate, but something that's really nice now. When something goes wrong, if something goes wrong, you're right next to your support system. Cons of going to a school in-state. It is not as adventurous and it doesn't seem as life-changing of a decision. It's closer to home. You have less freedom and independence, or at least I think less perceived freedom and independence, and there's a lot of people here that you already knew. If you're trying to get away from those people, things are not as new here. You've probably been to this campus before. I've been to Purdue's campus before. I have family that lives in Lafayette, so I've been up here a ton. I've been to volleyball games here versus Lipscomb before I visited for school. Had never heard of it, never been there. There's a chance that you're watching this because you are already in school or started school somewhere and you decided you don't like what you picked. Let's talk about the pros and cons of transferring and not transferring. Pros of transferring. You're trying something different than what you know you don't like. You get to start over. The beginning of college is really exciting because you're moving into a dorm you've never been in before, you're going to a new school, you're moving, whatever. You get to redo that experience. It's fun. Assuming you're leaving your old school because there's something you don't like, you might be making a better decision for yourself if you start at a new school. Cons of transferring. It can be really hard to make friends and it can be really lonely even if you do make friends. Freshman year, everyone's looking for a new friend group, looking for the people they're going to spend the rest of their lives with. After that, it feels like everyone has their heads down and has everything cemented in. You might have to make up credits. Last summer and this summer, I had to do 12 credit hour summers. I wanted to do 0 credit hour summers, depending on if you really care about graduating on time. I do. Picking a new school is hard. I put so much effort and prayer and time and thought into choosing my first school for it to not work out. And after that, I was like, I did everything I could do to pick the right school and I was wrong. So where do I go from here? Pros of not transferring. You don't have to start over and you're kind of in a place where you're in some way comfortable, right? You don't have to leave everything behind. You don't have to leave your friends behind. You don't have to restart over again. The process can be fun, but it can be stressful, so staying in the same place, you don't have to do that. You will definitely probably graduate on time or graduate closer to on time. You don't have to look for a new school, which can be really overwhelming. Cons of not transferring. Assuming that you're unhappy with some part of your current experience, you're settling for that unhappiness and choosing not to go find something that might be better for you. And now let's quickly run through some advice. I'm gonna make an advice video closer to the end of the summer when you're starting school. So this is from my Instagram followers. Follow me on Instagram. If you don't, you're gonna love it. Think about how being close to or being far from your family, friends, pets, significant other will affect you. I didn't get to talk to anyone who had done a gap year and really enjoyed it before I filmed this video, but it's definitely something that I wish was more presented as an option to me or that I would have considered more before starting school. Whatever you're afraid to do because people might judge you, if it's the right choice for you, it's the right choice. Oh yeah, and no matter what you do, people are going to talk bad about you. Someone's going to not like your decision. Someone's going to have something terrible to say about your school. Someone's gonna tell you it's too hard or too easy or too whatever, no matter what you pick. Like, nothing is going to please everyone. The grass is greener, always. The grass is always greener on the other side. Every time, even now that I'm like really happy where I'm at, whenever I go to another college campus, I'm like, oh, this is where I should have gone. This, if I was here, my life would be perfect. Comparison is the thief of joy. Every day I learn that to a new degree. The financial decision you make is so important and most likely will affect you for a really long time. This is not just me saying this, multiple people said this. I have seen so many people have to drop out or have to transfer or have to do something less than they wanted to do because they chose a school that was too expensive for them. Academics should not be your only consideration when looking for a school. Someone said to research the location and campus life of the colleges you're looking at. And then from a grad, consider job placement rates and average salary. You want a job and you want to make money. I hope this was helpful, guys. I know that I couldn't cover everything in this video, but I hope I covered some stuff that's helpful to you. It's important to put thought into this decision, and it is a really big decision, but also life's what you make it. College is only 4 years. College does not need to be the peak of your life. And if you choose the wrong school, things will be okay and things can still work out. If you're making this decision, good luck. If you're not making this decision, thanks for watching through. Really appreciate it. If you're deciding now or if you're already in school, let me know in the comments where you decided to go. I love you. I'll see you next time.